Hi there, welcome to Subpar Stitches. My name is Hillary and this is my Flosstube channel. So if you're seeing this right now, I'm probably at StitchCon, God willing, right? But I decided that because I didn't want to try to film like super early, get something edited, uploaded before I left for StitchCon, because I'm leaving on a Wednesday right after work, and my usual filming day is like Thursday or Friday. I didn't want to deal with all that. So I'm just throwing up a little extra, and I thought it'd be fun to do a tag video. I think like the old school YouTube tag videos were always really fun. They're fun because they're fun to film for me, and they're fun to watch because I feel like you get to know somebody in like just like a fun little lighthearted way. So I created my own tag video. So this is like the Know Your Stitcher tag video. If there's tag videos out there already in the cross stitch world, I don't know, because I haven't really been on Flosstube that long. So if these already exist, my bad, but I made another one. So anybody who wants to do this, feel free to do this. All the questions will be listed down in the description box, so you can just copy and paste them if you want. You can answer them however you like. Tag me in it so that I can watch your video and find you. But yeah, this is 14 questions that I came up with, and I'm going to answer them. And you'll get to know a little bit more about me, what I like to stitch, my style, all that. And then if you do it, I get to know more about you. So question number 1 is, how did you choose your Flosstube name? Everybody's Flosstube name seems to kind of like represent something about their style of stitching or things like that. So I always want to know, like, I wonder what made them pick this. There's one YouTube, before I even tell you about mine, there's one YouTuber I've heard people mention. I haven't watched her, but I think she's called the Salt Box Stitcher. And I always heard people talking about like salt boxes this and salt boxes that. And I was like, why do people who cross stitch love salt so much? I finally found out a few months ago, a salt box is a house. It's a style of house. I thought you guys were all stitching things to put on a box of salt. That I was like, first of all, why are you storing your salt in the box? I put it in a shaker. But second, why are we cross stitching for the salt box? I mean, that's fine, but didn't know it was a house. So now I know, and I felt really silly. But how I chose my name. So I actually have been on YouTube since 2020 with a different channel, a nail polish channel, and I'm called Mediocre Manny's. And I thought it was funny to be like, not very good, but here I am. I like setting the bar like a little bit low so that when you do like just okay, people are impressed. And so when I decided to start a Flosstube, I was like, how can I bring that same energy to Flosstube? And I was like, what goes with stitches that would be funny? And it's kind of like in like the mediocre level. And at first I was like, should I call myself Shitty Stitches? And I was like, no, probably not. Nobody's gonna watch you, Hillary. But then I was like, oh yeah, subpar stitches. And it's so funny because the exact same thing, the same thing that happened to me on my nail channel is happening. I think Rob just got home. Robert, are you home? No. The same thing that happened to me on my nail channel is happening to me here, and it fills me with life. So I get like PR and stuff on my other channel, and people will be like, Dear Mediocre, because my name on the channel is Mediocre Manny's. And here people will refer to me as Subpar. They're like, yeah, Subpar said. And I'm like, I don't know. There's just something so funny about referring to a human being as like, hey, Mediocre. Hey, Subpar. I think it's so funny and I love it. And I'm just glad that that's the name that I picked. So yeah, Subpar Stitches. That's how I came to that one. And actually where I even got Mediocre Manny's, which I guess started all this, was I got the idea from a panel of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Because there's like a part where like Roderick left his underwear on the table. And the dad, as he's leaving, was like, Roderick, that underwear better be off the table by the time I get home. And it just says grunt. And then the dad comes home and the underwear's gone and he's like super impressed. And Greg, who's writing the diary, says something about like, you shouldn't set the bar too high and then nobody expects anything from you. And like, that's where I got, like, that's where the whole brainchild came from. So yeah, it all goes back to Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Question number 2 is, how did you get into stitching? I got into stitching because I started out as a knitter. At 11, I learned how to knit. And then when I moved to college, when I was 17, dorm rooms, crazy small, not enough space for knitting and knitting paraphernalia. Like there is, but like not for like everything. And so I wanted to find a hobby that took up less space, and somehow I landed on cross stitching. I don't even know why, but okay, yeah, he was home and it scared the crap out of me because he started making noises and I was like, who's in my house? Anyways, yeah, so in college, I needed like a small craft, and I think I found it via craftster.org, which is now defunct, which I'm sad about because I use that a lot. And I remember the first project, like I never had the problem where I know a lot of people, their first stitch, they don't realize you have to separate the strands in order to stitch. I didn't have that problem. What I didn't realize was you were supposed to cut the thread. So like the first time I tried to stitch with the entire length of the skein, and I was like, this is hard. I don't think this is correct. So that was insane of me. And I guess that leads me into, what is the first thing you ever stitched? And the first thing I stitched was an Eevee from Pokemon. So I don't remember how I found this. It was probably on Craftster, but I like found this project and I had it in my head. I was like, oh, I'm gonna do all 150 Pokemon. And it was pretty dense. I mean, it wasn't huge, but it was like a denser, very shading heavy project. So maybe not the best for your first project. I did finish it, and then I never stitched another Pokemon in that series. And I found it many years later, and it was like stained from like the hoop and like all this, and I threw it away, and I wish I hadn't because it would have been cool to have like my very first stitch project. Okay, number 4. I will always stitch what? So I'll always stitch anything weird. Anything kind of funky, anything strange, it's right up my alley. Like I love that kind of stuff. Like the Furby that was also the shrimp, the Frimp, I was like, yes, absolutely. Like stuff like that, I'm always gonna stitch a weirdo pattern. Like I can't hold myself back from a weirdo pattern. Anything like really colorful too, I really, really enjoy. Like colorful and weird, that's my vibe. On the flip side of that, I will never stitch I got a couple. I'll never stitch patriotic. You will never see me stitch patriotic. I just don't like patriotic. I think red, white, and blue, I think flags are ugly. I don't care what flag it is. It's ugly. I don't like flags. I just have never been big into like Americana. I don't like even like I see people stitch like some of the more historical kind of patriotic stuff. It's just not my thing. I have never been a patriotic person. I think the only time I've ever felt like even like a modicum of like patriotism was when I moved out of the country, and then I had like people who have never lived in the US like telling me how the US works, and I'm like, you're not correct, and also shut up. Like I had like Europeans being like, you're in debt to us this much, and I'm like, what do you want me to do? Go to my bank account and pay you? I don't care. The money is fake. Like, money's not real. Like, don't even worry about it. So I'm just not a big patriotic person. The only patriotic pattern I have ever seen that I wanted to stitch was a recent release, and it's called like Independence Day, and they're ants. I don't know. I thought it was funny. So that's it. That's really, I won't stitch patriotic. I won't stitch Hades, Heaven and Earth Designs. I've heard they're a bit of a pattern mill. I don't know how true that is, but I don't really want to deal with that. And also, has anybody ever finished a Hade? Has anybody ever finished one? Because, man, they look like they take 40 years. They look like they take a long time. A lot of the art on Hade is just not my style anyways. So, like, if I really want it, I'll buy, like, a poster of it. I don't know. And then I also, outside of a very specific situation, like, I would never stitch religious. I'm not a religious person. I'm not like really into a lot of the religious stitches. However, my fiance is. And so if he asked for something, I'd probably stitch it for him. Like one time he asked me if maybe I could stitch an icon for him, which icons are like these like hand painted, like religious icons. I grew up Catholic, so like I don't know how to explain this to people who aren't Catholic. Because it's just something like that's like ingrained. You just know it. But there's like pictures of like saints and like important figures in the church, and they only like a few people can paint them. Like you're like certified to paint these, and they are pretty. But I've never seen like a stitching pattern that is an icon, and I don't know if that would be like blasphemous, since I'm not equipped to make icons, you know? I don't know. But those are the three things that I just probably would never stitch. The only religious pattern that I've seen where I was like kind of interested in was like a soie. Oh, it's like soie de J or Oversoir or whatever the designer is. They had like this one, and it was like Mary, and it almost looks embroidered. It's so beautiful, like the stitching in it. So that one I thought was really cool, but I can't see myself stitching it if it wasn't for somebody else. Number 6, my favorite fabric count is what? I don't know. I think 18/36. But recently I've been really into 40 count, but I think 18 count is kind of my sweet spot, because it's like it's large enough that using 2 strands doesn't look crazy, but it's small enough that it's still kind of itty bitty, and that's what I like. I'm not a big 14 count person. I'll stitch on 28 count, but I don't like stitching on 14 count. That doesn't make sense, and yet here we are. Been getting into 40 count. I have some right here. I've been getting 40 count even weaves from Bestitch Me, and they're just really cute and tiny. But I don't know if it's like my staple. I don't know if it's what I want for the rest of my life. I think I want 36 count. I think that's what I like. I think 36/18 is my vibe. Number 7, my oldest whip. So this is pretty easy for me to answer. My oldest whip is actually only from last year. Yeah, because I was a monogamous stitcher until I started on Flosstube. So I would finish one and then I'd move on to the next. And now I have too many. But my oldest whip is the Epic Generation 1 Pokemon Cross Stitch by Lord Libidin. I started it on January 1st of 2023 and haven't made much progress recently. I am struggling to get motivated. I'm going to finish it. Previously, I had done a really big full coverage, and it was fine. It took me a couple years to do, but like I finished it. I had it framed and everything, and I don't know why this one I just got a mental block. I'll get there, but I don't want this one to get too old. And I was gonna do the second one too, but I don't think I have it in me. I think I'm gonna do one and be done. I think I'm done with full coverages of that size. It's just too much for me. I like a lot of littler projects. Speaking of whips, how many whips do you have? So I need to count them really quick. Okay, I have 25 whips. I would say half of them are smalls, and then a handful of them are medium size, and then a handful of them are on the like 10 to 20,000 plus stitches side. So I think it's not like unreasonable, but it's also, for some people, that might be insane. My goal is to get it down to like 10 to 15 and then keep that as like my constant like 10 to 15 whips. And then as I finish one, I can start another one, but I keep starting stuff. So that's making it kind of difficult to get it down to that, but we'll see. I know some people have like 50 to 100 whips. I don't have the space for that. I mean, I guess I do, but like I just mentally in my brain, I don't have the space for that. I will forget what I've got going, and then stuff will never get worked on. So I would rather they stay as like patterns or kits or whatever until I have the space in my head, you know? A project you're dying to start. I have a few, but I think like one that I've been wanting to start, and I bought this pattern a while ago and I just haven't started yet. It's an owl forest embroidery. It's called, I think, Solyanka. I don't speak Russian, so I don't know. But it is like, it's like a meat place. Like it's like there's a bunch of like meats. I mean, I've probably posted the picture up here. It's got like a bunch of like meats on there, and it looks like a big pot in the center of a table, and everybody's got like soup, and there's like some cats, and it's like, it's really, really pretty. I love Owl Forest embroidery colors. I've never, actually I've stitched a couple free ornaments from Owl Forest embroidery, but I want to stitch this, but I want to buy the overdyed threads that they have. And I don't want to just buy one because I heard shipping's a little bit expensive. So I'm waiting until after StitchCon, see how much money I have left, and then I'll probably buy a few thread packs from Owl Forest for that. I have like 100 owls, which would be kind of fun. Actually, I have a few patterns from them, and I don't know which ones they do and don't have thread packs for. I don't know if they do them for all. They have that, like the pickle, like the cucumber sampler or whatever it is. That's one I want to do as well, so I'd probably buy the threads for that. But the reason why I haven't started any of my other Owl Forests is because I really want to use like the overdyes, because I just really like the way they look in the examples, and so that's why I haven't started those. Next is a project you love but just won't start for some reason. And I know exactly which one this is, because it is a kit that I bought after watching Kitschy Whips. She had talked about this like wizard that she got. It's like a Janlin project, or what do you call it, kit. And I found it on eBay for like 40 bucks, and I bought the kit, and I love it. I love the way it looks, and it's gonna be so fun. It's got all these different threads and blending filaments and all this kind of stuff, but I just haven't started it because it's out of print. It's an old pattern, and I don't want to screw it up. So I'm thinking maybe I should make that my birthday start this year to force myself to just like get it started. And who doesn't need more wizard whips, am I right? Next is, are you a full coverage person or a blank space person? And for me, I'm definitely more of like a blank space. I like when the fabric peeks through. I really like using fun fabrics to kind of add like an elevated level to a project. And also full coverage, I just, after having done one really big full coverage and I'm working on a second one, it adds such a thickness that, I don't know, it feels like a tapestry, and I don't love that. But at the same time, I don't mind full coverage if it's smaller. You know what I mean? Like, I like a smaller full coverage. But like a big, like 100,000 stitch full coverage, it's just not my vibe, even though I'm doing one. How often do you stitch? Too much? Too often? I stitch every day, at least once a day, typically twice a day, because I stitch on my lunch at work, and then I come home and I stitch some more usually after I've done all my chores, sometimes before. And I just like to stitch. If I'm watching TV, I'm stitching. If I'm in the car as the passenger, stitching. If I'm being dragged somewhere against my will and I have to sit there for several hours, I'm gonna stitch. I'm just gonna stitch. Any ounce of free time I have, I'm gonna stitch in it. Do you have a unicorn pattern? So if you don't know what a unicorn pattern is, it's like a pattern that typically it's probably out of print, and it's like a pattern you really, really want, you can't find, or you can't find at a reasonable price, and so you don't own it for whatever reason. And for me, I didn't think I had one. And then the more I thought about it, the more I realized, yes, I do. And it is the Monopoly pattern. I love the game Monopoly. I don't know why, I just love that game. It's just fun. I like all the tiny money. I like it. And there is a official cross stitch pattern where you can stitch the Monopoly board. And I want to do that and then like put it under glass and have a usable Monopoly board that I made for some reason. That's what I want. And it's an expensive pattern. Like, people who sell it on like the D-Stash, it goes really fast and it's hard to find, and I should probably check eBay. I haven't, but I would die to be able to stitch the Monopoly pattern. Like, I don't even need to have the pattern for the rest of my life. I just need it so I can stitch it, and then that's it. I only need to stitch it once and then I'll be happy. But yeah, if anybody knows where to find the Monopoly pattern, I would love it. I would love to buy that. Please. And then last but not least, paper or PDF patterns. I know like some people are very like strictly like I only work off of paper. Some people are very strictly I only work off of PDF. When I first started, I only worked off of paper because I just never really considered working off of a screen. I didn't know about like all the apps and stuff where you could mark stuff off. For me, I think it really depends on the number of colors and the size of the pattern. So if it's like an itty bitty pattern, like the tiny art masterpieces, even if they had like a lot of colors, I didn't mind working off paper because they're really small. If they were bigger and I had to like figure out where all the colors were, that would be a pain. So I would have preferred a PDF for that and then put it into like Pattern Keeper or Markup RXP because I have both. And that way, when you highlight a color, it blows it all up on, you can see where every single stitch of that is. That's really convenient. But at the same time, my Long Dog sampler, the Pavane for These Times, that's a huge piece, but it's monochromatic. So I've been working off paper and I don't have any issue with it. Like, it's very easy to work off the paper. So for me, it really just depends on the number of colors and the size of the pattern, and that's how I decide. But if I really had to choose one or the other, I think I would err on the side of digital versus paper. However, like I said, I don't mind a mix of it. There is something about having like that physical pattern when you buy from a designer and it comes in like the nice cardstock and stuff. That feels kind of special over a PDF, but at the same time, it's nice. I have all my PDFs in my drive, my Google Drive, and then if I ever needed to get something up on the fly, I could pull open from my phone and just look at the thread list and all that, and it's very easy. So I think both have their advantages. That's my cop-out answer. So yeah, that is my Get to Know Your Stitcher tag. Let me know down below what you guys thought and tag me in this if you do it yourself. I would love to watch yours and learn more about your stitchy style. But yeah, I'm probably just so busy having fun at StitchCon. So I will see you guys in a couple weeks. Bye.